morning, if you were not with us, we talked about while we were yet sinners. While we were yet sinners. If you know anything about this particular banner, with while we were yet sinners, you realize that everybody in here was a sinner. Amen. Everybody. Amen. And sinners can be seen in two prospects. One particular aspect is we were sinners that were lost. The other aspect is we are sinners that are saved. Amen. But the word sometimes connotes a continual practice of sin. Oftentimes when the Bible says we were or we are sinners, it's referring to the perpetual act of sinning without godly consciousness. But I want you to know that just because you've been baptized into the blood of Christ does not mean you stop sinning. You should be growing, but it doesn't mean all your sins are done away with. But thanks be to God. Right. God does not make that a prerequisite. Not to say that we should sin, but he does not make it a prerequisite that we stop all sinning before he does something for us. Now that's powerful. Because most of us, when it comes to something that we want to give to somebody, there has to be almost a bartering when it comes to, I'll drive you to point A, but I need some gas money. Amen. Yeah, I'll host the Thanksgiving dinner, but you're going to have to bring a dish. Amen. There's a bartering when it comes to human beings, right? But when it came to God, God loved you and I so much. The Bible says, while we were yet sinners, he said, while we were in the process of doing our own thing, being selfish, being self-centered. Can everybody see that from that angle a little bit? Okay. He says, while we were yet sinners, the Lord did something for us. Now let's look at Romans chapter 5. We're going to go through a lot of passages. And so I want you to stay with me. I want you to grab a pen. If you have a recording device, I said this morning, some of those who don't know, on your smartphone, if you have a smartphone, there is a recording device on it. So you don't have to go and buy a separate recorder. You just hit voice recorder on your phone. Praise the Lord. And they put this fancy recording device on your phone. Amen. So please feel free to record if you have the means to do so. Romans chapter 5. Verse number 1, I'm going to read from the King James tonight, but I'm going to integrate it with the New American Standard as well as the New Living Translation, so you may hear me read from all three. Verse number 1 says, therefore, being justified by faith. That's almost a thesis sentence. I want you to write that down. If you're keeping notes, this could be your thesis sentence. Being. This is the key word, the word being. Another key word, justified. We're going to learn this year, for those of you who are going to take a class, that when you see a word repeated in a particular paragraph or a particular, what they call pericope, what you want to do is take note of that word. The writer is not writing that same word just because he's not that smart and he doesn't have any other word to use. He's writing that because he wants to emphasize something about that term. Okay? Now, I want you to know for your record, I want you to get this down in your spirit. When he says justified, this is a key term. See if I can remember my brief here. Might be off a letter or two, but close enough. The Greek word is a word called diakeo. Diakeo. The word itself means to be put in a non-guilty state. To be put in a non-guilty state. Some would say it's a phrase you can use is as if I didn't sin. Okay? So, when we see this phrase beginning this particular verse, he's going to say, therefore. Remember what I said this morning. Anytime you see a therefore, what I said do?
Something prior to that had been stated.
Something that's said previously. Just remember that. When you see terms of either conclusions or what they call changing of thought, like but, therefore, wherefore, however, what you want to do is fine. It's like a swing. If you want to swing, you remember being on a swing and one side went up and one side went down. There's something in the middle called a fulcrum. Generally speaking, those words like wherefore and therefore are what they call fulcrums. They balance two thoughts that have association with one another. Okay? So what we want to do is immediately ask, why is therefore, therefore? So we find the answer. If we go back one verse, Romans 4:24. But for us also, to whom it shall be imputed. You see that word imputed?
Yes.
He says, if we believe on him that raised up Jesus our Lord from the dead. Now, you may want to go back even further than that, because what he's going to talk about is that Abraham had the faith to do what God wanted him to do. And when Abraham, not being a perfect man, did what God wanted him to do, God did something on his behalf that he could not do. He imputed. That means he put it on his account. Now, I don't know about you. I've never been to jail, but I've had friends that have been to jail. And what they do is they say, listen, can you put something on my books? Anybody know what I'm talking about? I'm sure you know. Amen.
I don't.
I'm the only one that got friends that been to jail. Amen. So anyway, they'll ask you to put something on their books. You're imputing something that they don't have the power to do. Out of the kindness of your heart, you go down to whatever local municipality jail or prison, and you have to put money on their books. Why is that? So that they can purchase things in the commissary. Am I right about it? Amen. Y'all help me out. All right, so watch this. The Lord says, what I'm going to do, Abraham, not because you're righteous, but because I'm righteous. But what I need for you to do is to have faith. And faith is an inclusive word. Faith doesn't just mean to think and believe. Faith means to have the trust and confidence in what God's going to do. You see how that works? Most of us, if we're honest, struggle with faith. Most of us. Not all of us, but most of us. Most of us will see something, a bad situation, a bad report, could be a bad doctor, could be financial issues, could be work-related, could be family issues, it could be friend issues, it could be a number of things. And we say we're going to pray about it. And before we get off our knees, we done took the prayer from heaven and put it right back on our backs. God, I want you to take care of this. Okay, in Jesus' name. Did you hear me? And that's how we act, right? Because if it doesn't happen in 2 nanoseconds, or the very next day, we getting our problem back. Maybe the Lord, this too big. Let me try this. Let me dabble with it. My point is this. Faith always requires that you put confidence in God and leave it there.
That's right.
Now, he will require you to do some things, but beyond his requirements, that's God's job. It's not faith plus something. That's my point. There was a missionary, and he was in the South Seas, and he was trying to translate the English Bible into the native tongue. And he got stuck on this one word. One word was faith. He was like, I just don't, because he had to relate something that they understood to this word. That's how translations go. Even though we have an English translation, a lot of this is foreign. If I were to read this back to a Greek audience 2,000 years ago, you'd be scratching your head. What does that word mean? Because there's a word association when it comes to translations. You have to find words that closely. That's why it's called, really, it's not a translation, it's a transliteration. Mm-hmm. You're trying to get the closest to the word in our vernacular or our lexicon to what they said in theirs. And it's not always a one-to-one perfect match. That's why you can't always, I had a guy today tell me about the word tithe. He was going off, oh, tithe means money. Tithe means, because we were talking about there's no command where tithe includes money. So I've been going over this with many people, preachers included, and they go, well, tithing was money. Tithing, I said, well, just give me one verse. And I'll wait, and I'll wait. Been waiting for 20 years. And they ain't got one yet. But here's my thing. The word has to be transposed in a way that makes it close to what we say. So here's my point. The Lord says we need to be justified. How? Therefore, being justified, this is verse number 1. Paul's going to use the same motif in other parts of Romans. He says, therefore, being justified by faith. The word by is important because by speaks to instrumentality. I know that's a $20 word, so let me break it down. Instrumentality means the channel or the object or something that's immediately constructed to get you from something to somewhere else. If I say, what was the instrumentality in getting here today?
Car.
Somebody would say vehicle.
Foot.
You know? Did you say boat, Sister B? I didn't know we had water. But that's, whatever it was. Amen. Some of y'all got a little money. You might have come by helicopter. I don't know. But whatever you came by, that was the instrumentality to arrive at that influence. Is everybody still on with that? So here's the thing. Therefore, being justified by the instrumentality, what is it? Works. We're justified by works. No. Didn't say works. It says faith. I'm gonna double down on this point. Turn to Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8. If someone read Ephesians 2, verse 8, and then read verse number 9. Then someone give me next. Somebody give me Romans chapter 3 and verses 24 through 28. If you have Ephesians 2, 8, 9, let's begin reading.
By grace, you have been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. It is a gift from God, not of works, lest anyone should boast. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them.
All right. Now, I want you to see some key words in there. The Lord says, he doesn't say we're justified there. He says, for by grace are we what? Saved. Does everybody know what grace is? Unmerited favor. In most contexts, it means unmerited favor. But here's another definition for grace. It also means God's supernatural power to accomplish what he wants. God's supernatural power to accomplish what he wants. That's God's grace too. So either way you look at it, grace is the primary cause for salvation. Okay? Remember that. Grace is the primary cause for salvation. Why is that important? Because we know that works is not. How do you know? He just tells you right there in the text. He says grace is primary. God's unmerited favor. Faith then is secondary. How do you know that? Read that verse again, verse number 8. Ephesians 2.
For by grace you have been saved through faith.
Stop right there. Faith is the vehicle, it's the instrumentality
Get the grace.
that we get grace. It is not grace at faith. But we are justified by faith. We enter God's grace through faith. Faith is important. Does everybody see that? I'm trying to make it simple so we can kind of, and I want us to, sometimes, like this morning we did a bird's eye helicopter view. But tonight I want to do a ground level search for the truth. Okay? So here we are. We know faith is in both these passages. We know we're justified by it, but it's grace that gives it. Now, if we don't have God's grace as the primary cause, then this faith doesn't mean anything. Amen. You can have the prettiest 2020 Ferrari, all the nice wheels, nice accessories, air conditioning in that thing, but I guarantee you, it doesn't have a motor, it doesn't have a battery, it ain't going.
Yeah, that's right.
Does everybody understand?
It's amazing.
The point is this: faith is important, but it's only secondary to God's grace. God has to decide beforehand He's going to give you His grace. A lot of the text that you read, especially in Romans, we read last week in 2 Corinthians 5, a lot of these texts are in what they call perfect tense. Let me give you the definition of perfect tense. The perfect tense is something that is an action that was taken in the past with results in the present. That means I completed the action a while ago, but now I still have ongoing results. I'll give you an example. On the cross, Jesus said, "It is finished." That's perfect tense. When He said it is finished, there is nothing that can be added to what He did. But it has results for us today. Does everybody see what I'm saying?
Amen.
So when you think about perfect tense, think of it that way. A lot of these terms we're going to go over today are going to be perfect tense, what they call perfect tense verbs. Okay? Therefore, being justified, go back to Romans 5. Well, actually, give me Romans 3, 24 to 28. Whoever got that. Romans 3, 24 to 28.
Being justified freely by His grace through the redemption that is in Jesus Christ, whom God has set forth to be appropriation through faith in His blood, to declare His righteousness for the remission of sins that are past, through the forbearance of God, to declare, I say, at this time His righteousness, that He might be just and justifier of him which believes in Jesus. Where is boasting then? Is it excluded from what law? Of works? Nay, but by the law of faith. That man is justified by faith without the deeds of the law.
Isn't that beautiful?
Amen.
Isn't that beautiful? See, He's going to repeat some of these same things. So we're not justified by works. We're justified by grace through faith. He keeps saying the same thing. So I want you to put these Lego blocks together. We got the fact that we're justified by faith, but it's God's grace that gives us the ability to be saved or justified by grace or by faith. He says in the B clause in verse number 1, he says, we have peace with God. That's an important phrase. Through our Lord Jesus Christ. The way you get peace with God, if I could draw something here to sort of picture what we're seeing here. What we have is two pieces of a puzzle. But the puzzle has been torn. This is what we call enmity. The word enmity means to be an enemy. I know most of us don't like to think of ourselves, even when we work in the church, as enemies of God. I know we don't like to think of ourselves. But textually speaking, became a sinner, your first sin you ever did, you became an
God's-
enemy of God.
Mhm.
Not because God didn't like you and he didn't like the way he was. He loved everybody he made. Everybody he even loved Satan. It was Lucifer back then, but he loved them too. He created you in his image. How can he hate somebody that he created in his own image, right? But here's the problem. The enmity doesn't come because of personal animus. It doesn't come because he just hated you. It came because you sinned and he's a righteous God. So to appeal to his righteousness, you have to be made righteous, or else you're unrighteous, which means you're an enemy of his. See, that's the thing. We see things in what we call a postmodern society as sort of shades of good. Well, I'm not bad. Well, why you say you're not bad? Well, I'm not a murderer. That means you're not bad. Well, I'm not bad. Why? Because I have one wife. But you're on the internet looking at porn. Hello, somebody. Well, I'm not bad. Yeah. Well, why you not bad? Well, at least I don't go around carjacking folks. You know, we try to make this thing sort of
Cut and
shady.
dry.
We're grading on the curve. I'm not as bad as him. You remember the Pharisee? You know, at the center, they went into the temple. Oh, and I'm glad I'm not like her. I do this, I do that, I give, I do this, I do that. Plus I do this. While she says, Lord, I'm a sinner. Now he might have been right about what he said, but the point is still wrong because she admits it and he doesn't know he's wrong.
Amen.
Isn't that something? At least he's not acknowledging it. We do the same thing. So anyway, there is a division, enmity between God and man. What God says to bridge the gap, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to send my son. My son is going to have to pay the cost. The cost is going to cost his life. He's going to have to be beaten. He's going to have to be crucified. Just so I can say, I'm appeased. Think about how deep that is. You're God. Nobody's going to tell you you're right or wrong. But because you're so righteous, you're going to send part of you to die for the unrighteous while they're still sinning. And then you do that so you can reconcile them back to you, not them to you, but you to them. Think about how deep that is. You may not think about it now, but when you get home tonight, think about how deep it is. God could have said, you know what? I'm not going to have my child go through that kind of pain. I'm just going to forgive him. Body looking, be good. Right? We're going to tell God it's wrong. But because God is so right, God said, no, I can't do it this way. That's called integrity. The way I'm going to do it is, I'm so righteous, you're going to have to pay. But it won't be on your account, it'll be on my son's account. So once we get all this together, let's finish the thought out here. Verse 2, by whom? These are important terms. I don't want you to, sometimes we go past these little small terms and prepositions and all that. I don't want you to think that way. He says, by whom also. Anybody know why he said by whom also? You want to take a guess at that? He says, by whom also we have access by faith. Faith does two things. It justifies us, and then it gives us access. When you know how good God is, you thank God for access. What's the access? The access is the ability to come to God for any reason. But God says you didn't have it in the Old Testament. You had to go through a mediator in the Old Testament. You don't have to go through a mediator now. You just have to come to Christ. All right? Let me go back one verse to show you something else in this text, verse number 1. He says, we have. I want you to underline that phrase, we have. It's a word that means that we possess. It is what they call an objective. There's an objective and subjective, but this is an objective. This is God's objective. We have peace with God. And it shows that we are no longer God's enemies. He says we have the peace that binds us together, but it has to come through God. The state of ultimate peace is the state of reconciliation with God, effected by placing one's faith in the gospel. Now watch what the Bible didn't say. It didn't say we have peace with man. It didn't say we had peace with the devil. It didn't say we had peace with our family and friends. It didn't say we had peace with our church members. It says we have peace with God. Peace with God does not presuppose you have peace with everything else. Okay? All right. Someone give me quickly Colossians chapter 1. Colossians chapter 1. And then I want us to look at verse number 20. Colossians 1:20. Then someone's give me Colossians 2:14. Colossians 1:20 and then Colossians 2:14. If you have it, read.
By him to reconcile all things to himself, by him, whether things on earth or things in heaven, having made peace through the blood of his cross.
Okay. Now, do you see that? There's a mediator between God and man, and Jesus makes peace through his blood. Okay. All right. Colossians 2:14 says what? All right. So Christ has blotted out the writing of the accusation that was against us. So his blood erases all those things we did wrong. Write this down. I'm going to read this. 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 5. 1 Timothy 2:5. Hebrews 8:6. Hebrews 8:6. Hebrews 8:6 and Hebrews 12:24. Hebrews 12:24. All right, let's move on to verse 2. He says, through whom also we have obtained our introduction by faith into this grace in which we stand, and the exalted hope of the glory of God. The New Living Translation reads, because of our faith, Christ has brought us into this place of highest privilege, where we now stand, and we confidently and joyfully look. The word through whom, or in the King James, by whom, is the same preposition did. It means the modality or the instrumentality, as we mentioned earlier. So we have the instrumentality of Jesus Christ that brings us into access. Now, I said this morning, there's some things that you're probably not quite familiar with.